Hello and welcome everybody to the next entry of the Sonic Frontiers Starfall Tournament. This is a what if series where we investigate how the events of Sonic Frontiers may have played out differently if the end were to use a tournament to set itself free from cyberspace. Now, we are into the quarterfinals. We've seen many battles come and go, as well as many combatants. Today, we're going to be seeing quite the powerful pairing, so I hope you find it enjoyable. Of course, if you do end up enjoying this video, please leave a like and subscribe so that I know you want to see more of this kind of content. And if you want to help support the channel as well as this series, then please share the video around with those you think will be excited so that the conversation may grow. Now, last time we left off in the middle of Shadow the Hedgehog and Zavok's match, so let's see how that plays out. Zavok rests upon the head of his giant mechanoid dragon as he glares down at Shadow the Hedgehog. "The full might of the Zeti shall fall upon you!" Its mouth opens up and fires a large concentrated energy blast. Shadow's speed makes it a trivial matter to avoid the attack, but he notices its sheer power. He would be foolish to assume it can't do any harm if he's caught off guard. Taking the initiative, Shadow teleports onto the dragon to confront Zavok the old-fashioned way. The Zeti turns around with a grin, welcoming the challenge as they confront one another. Shadow goes for a punch to his gut, but Zavok easily bats it aside with his fist and then slams down with his other one on top of Shadow, who hops back to avoid the attack and then jumps forward, sending a flaming kick towards Zavok's head, who once again deflects it with his hand and manages to quickly jab Shadow in the chest with his remaining hand. Shadow takes the hit but grabs onto Zavok's fist and uses it to vault over and drop his heel onto Zavok's forehead. He groans in pain and pushes Shadow away with his shoulder, creating some distance between them, at which point he then raises his fingers to communicate to his mech and summon lasers from the floor. Shadow only has a fraction of a second to react as the floor beneath his feet glows blue. He manages to roll to the side, falling off of the mech as pillars of electric blue light shoot up into the sky. However, this action may have allowed him to avoid the main attack, but Zavok himself then flings a fireball towards Shadow, catching him and hitting him onto the floor. Shadow flips back onto his feet in the nick of time as Zavok's mech has charged up a powerful laser beam that fires from its mouth and trails Shadow's position. He uses his speed to keep away from it as he tries to think of a new plan of action, while Zavok taunts him. "Has the situation set in yet, Shadow? I am the strongest thing you could have ever faced, and it will be the last face you ever see." Shadow hops into the air to throw a Chaos Spear, and it does find its mark, exploding against Zavok's body, but it merely wobbles his position a bit, and nothing more as he laughs. "Your struggle is useless." As Shadow continues to skate around the laser beam, chunks of the arena are obliterated and disintegrated by its sheer force. It's a powerful device, but perhaps it has a weakness. If it can be removed, Shadow can help even up the playing field. He teleports onto the tail end of the giant creature and revs up a spin dash, tearing down across its surface towards Zavok once again. "Try as you like, you cannot stop me." He bats Shadow away with the back of his palm, launching him back a bit but still remaining on the dragon, and Zavok raises his fingers again to fire a beam of light. But this time, knowing what to expect, Shadow summons a Chaos Lance, spins it round and slams it straight into the spot where the laser should have came out beneath him. It explodes and sparks of electricity. Shadow has to grit his teeth as the heat scorches him a little. As the smoke clears, that section of the dragon seems to have now malfunctioned. Zavok's eyes go red with fury. "Shadow!" And he charges towards the hedgehog with his claws out, throwing them wildly with a ferocious speed. Shadow retreats step by step to avoid the attacks, but he's running out of space before he comes off the dragon. Seeing Zavok's single-minded assault on him, he jumps up and places his palm on Zavok's forehead, putting him in a precarious situation to say the least, as Zavok can easily reach him from there. But the reason he did this is he noticed Zavok had also commanded another volley of lasers, and so by putting himself in this risky position, Zavok did not cancel the attack, meaning that Zavok is caught in the laser strike itself alongside Shadow. They're both launched off to the side, falling off of the mechanoid dragon and landing onto the broken tournament floor. As the two of them pick themselves up, Zavok slams the ground with one of his fists and shouts towards Shadow, "I'll rend you in half!" pointing his horns towards him and bull rushing towards Shadow the Hedgehog. He quickly glances behind him though, and notices that the dragon's many sections have glass containers protecting their vitals. With this information, as Zavok closes in on him, he hops up and teleports behind Zavok as he crashes into the glass, shattering it and sticking his horn into the electronics. You pesky little... He then comes up behind Zavok and unleashes a torrent of chaos energy from his palm, shoving his face further into the electronics, seemingly hitting something vital as a chain reaction sparks electricity and then detonates. A cloud of smoke wafts out from Zavok's position, pushing Shadow back. And once it clears up, Zavok, face bruised and wearing a furious expression, stands in front of a broken segment once more. I'm going to break every bone in your body! He raises his fingers to command the dragon, and this time it slinks up like a serpent, standing tall above the arena, as its laser mouth opens wide, turns down, and tries to strike Shadow once more. He resumes his movement, but Zavok turns it up a notch, causing all the remaining segments to shoot their blue lasers in all directions as well, making it very difficult to avoid. On top of this, Zavok starts throwing fire towards Shadow. Given the already destroyed arena, the size of his enemies, and the quantity of their attacks, he will not be able to move for long before something hits him. However, he won't need to. Zavok's confident in his strength, so Shadow will undermine it. He teleports to one of the segments of the body shooting the blue lasers, and attacks it, smashing it with his fist, kicking it with his rocket shoes, breaking the surface, and damaging the electronics inside, causing it to explode. He then teleports to the next nearest option and does a flurry of hits again, repeating the action. Zavok is increasingly frustrated. Coward! Face me! Shadow ignores his plea and teleports to another glass panel on the sides of the dragon. Holding on to the metal frame, his free hand jabs in, breaking the glass, and then he rips out electronics repeatedly, tearing it to pieces. You cannot ignore me! Zavok flings a fireball straight towards Shadow. He notices it, so teleports, allowing his own attack to blow up on his dragon, breaking the segment. You can't ignore me! I am Zavok, leader of the Deadly Six! Shadow continues to teleport to other vital segments of lasers, breaking them with chaos spears as he throws them into the openings, causing them to detonate, working his way gradually up and up towards the head. I am a conqueror! I've ended countless heroes, destroyed civilizations. One measly hedgehog is not going to put me down. Zavok leaps off of the ground all the way up to the height of the dragon's head, right where Shadow is located, and with one moment he flings his arm, grabbing Shadow and then slamming him into one of the segments of his dragon. Shadow lies cluttered in broken metal and sparking wires as Zavok latches onto the opening he created to glare down at Shadow. I am the one thing you shall fear. Shadow grunts and responds. You're finished. What? Shadow flings his arms to the side and opens his palm, sending torrents of chaos energy in all directions. Zavok's knocked out of the dragon and thuds onto the ground. He looks up to see his dragon explode at numerous pieces. Too much structural damage has been done, and the segments begin detaching from one another and falling down. Shadow! This insult will not spare you! Zavok raises his fingers to control the dragon, trying to put it back together, but then he gasps, looking up. He's expended too much of his energy and taken too much damage. He can't manipulate the dragon anymore. As the realization sticks on his face, chunks of it fall all around him and on top of him. Gradually he's buried by pieces of his own weapon, the same weapon he'd used to terrorize his fellow Zeti in the past and those he came against in the future. Buried under a tomb of metal, Zavok is silent. Shadow teleports beside the mound and sees a red claw stick out of the metal rubble. Zavok's head then joins it, gasping for air, beaten and bruised as he looks around. "You cannot end me. I am the Zeti, the strongest there ever was." Shadow looks down towards Zavok as he approaches the small pieces of him that stick out from the metal. "Goodbye, Zavok." He raises his hand above and brings a chop down onto Zavok's head. "No!" The Zeti leader's head flops down as his arm drops to its side, silent and defeated. Shadow doesn't even give him a second look as he begins to walk away from the arena, and Zavok, alongside his mech, fades away. Zaz and Xena, the remaining Zeti, stare on in a stunned disbelief, mouth open, eyes twitching. Did their leader lose? Zavok? How is this possible? He's never lost. He always wins, and defeat is just a temporary setback for greater revenge to come. But as they slowly look to one another, they realise that this time, he isn't coming back. All the while, the stage repairs itself as the end announces the next match will be between Chaos and Mephiles. Diving down from the sky, a torrent of shadow crashes onto the arena's surface, newly repaired. Rising from it, Mephiles, head drooping low until he straightens himself up to observe the arena. "And once again, I make my return." He casts his gaze towards Chaos. "To think I would be pitted against one such as you. This will be the first worthy pairing since I arrived." Chaos makes his way slowly, not responding, at least visually, to anything Mephiles says. But that doesn't stop him. "The god of destruction, or so I hear. Curious to see if you are the one truly deserving of such a title in this clash of the gods." Mephiles floats, ready to go, and Chaos has arrived at his position. Without any further fanfare, the match begins. Chaos dives into action, slinging forward his bony arm towards Mephiles, stretching it out across the distance between them. Mephiles blocks the impact with a small sphere of dark energy in his palm, forcing it against the fist and able to drive it away. But as fast as the first one came, Chaos's other arm wraps around and smashes Mephiles. Not only does he take the blunt force, but he's partially submerged by the fist, moving him around. As he pulls out of it, the bony arm is reformed back to smash him again, and then the loose arm smacks him on the other side, ping-ponging him about in the air as he struggles to maintain control. Then, at last, he finds the opening and shoots forth some of his energy. Ha! It pours towards Chaos, a barreling, frothing purple light. However, the emerald within Chaos's body lights up, and Chaos accepts the enemy's attack as it jumps inside of him. Instead of doing anything devastating, Chaos simply points both arms towards Mephiles, and through his transparent watery body, it can be seen as Mephiles' own attack disperses down Chaos's two arms and then is repelled out by the emerald's power back towards Mephiles, smashing into him and sending him tumbling back across the arena's sky. He recovers as he hovers in the air some distance away from Chaos, just in time for Chaos's tail to have slung a couple slicing lasers towards him. They hack across him in horizontal and vertical lines, cutting Mephiles' body up in numerous places, but flickering purple shadows sew his body back together on the spot. Mephiles charges towards Chaos, wrapping himself in shadow as he does so. Chaos's bony arm is sent to intercept him, but he bounces it away with a burst of energy. Then his other arm attacks Mephiles, and he completely disintegrates it with another pulse. Right in front of Chaos's face, he keeps going, sending a fist forward to punch through Chaos's head. However, Chaos instantly drops to the floor as a puddle and raises back up behind Mephiles with an uppercut, catching the Dark God with a sucker punch, ending his movement. In that one motion, Chaos then allows his hand to envelop Mephiles, and he sinks into the ground once more. But Mephiles, still in his corporeal form, is slammed against the stone whilst Chaos sinks into it. Chaos rises up and slams down again, repeating the motion. He goes for it a third time, but as he sinks into the floor, this time Mephiles disperses into clouds of shadow. And whilst Chaos currently resides as a puddle, Mephiles' shadow dives down into the center of where Chaos currently remains. Their fluid forms begin swirling around like a whirlpool of chaos, as liquid and shadow ripple over and through each other, spiraling around, making the arena look more like some natural disaster than a battlefield. Every so often, a fishy jaw or a devilish face can be seen through the obscuring masses, but quickly disperse as the two forces counteract one another for dominance. They begin lifting off as a collected mass into the air from the floor and solidate into a sphere of blue and dark. However, a glowing light emanates from inside, and eventually Chaos 1 emerges with an explosion of water and shadowy ink splattering all around him as the Emerald's power allowed him to come out on top. He thuds onto the arena as Mephiles regathers himself slightly away. Pushing with his advantage, Chaos waves one of his arms in front of his face, gently, leaving behind floating orbs of water. These orbs then start morphing in shape to form a concentrated solid lance. They float above Chaos's head for a moment before flinging towards Mephiles, one by one in a manner similar to a Chaos Spear. The emerald glowing within Chaos as this attack takes place, skewering Mephiles hit for hit. He tries to evade, but he wasn't finished forming himself, and they fly at tremendous speed, skewering him and weighing him down long enough for Chaos's bony arm to come slamming down on top of Mephiles, squishing him against the floor. Gah! Down but not out, Mephiles unleashes a pulse of dark energy, freeing himself from Chaos's grasp and removing the watery spears within him. He rises up with power radiating from his fists before flinging one hand into the air. Purple flames emit from the floor beneath Chaos and start burning. Usually, fire is not an issue for a water god, but these flames give Chaos the first experience he's ever had of burning. He lets out a groan as the flames wrap around his legs. Meanwhile, Mephiles charges forward once more, throwing a very large ball of dark energy that closes in and expands near Chaos, blasting in a blinding light of purple and dark. But Mephiles is once again intercepted by an open palm of Chaos, slamming him against the ground. Because whilst it did detonate, Chaos stands missing half of his torso and a bit of his head. But being made of water, it isn't much to worry about, and his body reforms whilst Mephiles is flicked away. Tiring of this exchange, Mephiles points his fingers towards Chaos to unleash his finishing attack on him. But as he does, watery tendrils from above wrap around his wrists, yet Chaos is in view in front of him. What? Mephiles snaps his head upwards to see that above the arena, a large sphere of concentrated water floats above. Looking back towards the water god, he can see now very faint particles of water slowly emanating from Chaos into this giant orb above him. It's clear he isn't the only one who was working up to a final attack. The problem is Chaos has him trapped. With one hand still free, he looks into his palm. I only have enough power to do this once. A pulse of shadow energy ripples out from his grasp, consuming his entire form. Flashes of time past arrive in front of his vision, moving in reverse and in a blur. Chaos's fists sending after him, their dive into a shadowy water mess. His sudden meeting with the stone. All of it repeats before him, backwards, until eventually he finds himself stood before Chaos, sending his bony fist towards him. Mephiles counters by generating a small orb of darkness within his palm and forcing it against Chaos's fist. Chaos sends his free arm towards Mephiles to smash him on the side. However, Mephiles knew this was coming and dives into the ground as a shadow, rising up beneath Chaos with only his head and top half of his body sticking out of the ground. Chaos looks down to see Mephiles' fingers as they fire a blasting white light that spears through Chaos' body, through his head, and through his brain. Like a broken water fountain, droplets of water spray into the air of the arena and rain down upon the floor. Zaz gasps from the side.
What the? It's already over? How did this guy do that so fast?
Shadow likewise is rather stunned. Chaos has shown he wasn't a pushover, and yet he was defeated within the first 2 minutes. Whilst the remaining onlookers try to make sense of what has occurred, Mephiles simply stands in the rain, looking up. But his gaze slowly turns down. As the water fades away, one thing remains. The Chaos Emerald. He raises the gem above his head. To the victor go the spoils. Phew, and that will be the end of that. I hope you found these matches entertaining. They're certainly up there on the power scale, and there's not many more to go now, so let's cherish every one that we still have. Thank you for watching this video all the way to the end. If you'd like to support the channel, then please leave a like, comment and subscribe, but most importantly, share the video around. I hope you have a great day and to see you next time. This is the Mighty Emperor, signing off.